What would you do if someone made fun of you in front of hundreds of people, not knowing you were once the best at the very thing they're laughing about? Before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Viral Tales. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from right now. The sound of breaking glass cut through the fancy ballroom like a knife through butter. 200 rich people stopped talking all at once. All eyes turned to look at the woman kneeling on the shiny marble floor, surrounded by pieces of broken crystal that sparkled like diamonds under the bright lights. Maya Johnson froze. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. The silver tray she'd been carrying lay twisted on the ground. Champagne glasses were shattered everywhere. She'd only been working as a cleaner at these fancy events for 3 weeks, and now this. Well, a loud voice boomed across the silent room. Look what we have here. Richard Sterling walked toward the center of the ballroom. He was 55 years old, wearing a suit that cost more than most people make in a year. His face was red from drinking too much whiskey. His eyes had that mean look that comes when someone has too much money and too much power. "Dad, please," whispered his son Marcus, who stood nearby looking embarrassed. Marcus was 28 and hated when his father acted like this. But Richard never listened to Marcus. He never listened to anyone. No, let me have my fun," Richard said, swirling his whiskey glass. He pointed at Maya, who was still picking up the broken pieces with shaking hands. "This woman clearly doesn't know how to walk properly. Maybe we should test if she can even move at all." Some people in the crowd laughed. Others looked away, pretending they didn't see what was happening. But nobody said anything to stop it. Nobody ever stopped Richard Sterling. Maya's fingers carefully picked up the sharp glass pieces. She didn't look up, but inside her chest, something old and strong was waking up. Something she thought had died 15 years ago. "I have an idea," Richard announced, snapping his fingers at the DJ. "Let's have some entertainment. Play a waltz." He turned to face the crowd with a huge grin. "If this cleaning lady can dance better than my wife, I'll marry my son to her right here, right now." Imagine that. The Sterling fortune going to someone who mops floors. The laughter got louder. Women covered their mouths, giggling behind their jewelry. Men shook their heads and smiled like they were watching a funny movie. The event manager tried to step forward, but Richard waved him away like an annoying fly. Maya slowly stood up. She wiped her hands on her simple black uniform. Then she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She looked directly into Richard Sterling's eyes. For a long moment, nobody moved. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Maya's face was calm, but her dark eyes showed something that made a few people in the crowd feel suddenly uncomfortable. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper, something powerful. "I accept," Maya said. Her voice was quiet but clear. It cut through the air like a bell ringing. The room went completely silent. Even the people who'd been laughing stopped. The DJ's hand froze on the music controls. The waiters stopped pouring drinks. Richard blinked 3 times fast. His smile got confused. "What did you just say?" "I said I accept your challenge," Maya repeated. This time, a tiny smile appeared on her face. "But when I dance better than your wife, you have to keep your promise, even if you meant it as a joke." The laughter exploded again, even louder than before. People were practically crying from laughing so hard. They thought they were about to see the most embarrassing thing ever. A cleaning lady trying to dance at a fancy party. This would be a story they'd tell for years. But none of them saw what was really in Maya's eyes. None of them recognized the look that had once mesmerized audiences in theaters across the world. The look of someone who had danced on the greatest stages ever built, before one terrible night changed everything forever. Richard's wife, Catherine Sterling, walked forward. She was 50 years old with perfect blonde hair and a dress covered in pearls. She taught ballroom dancing to rich people in Manhattan. Everyone knew she'd won prizes. Everyone knew she was good. "Darling," Catherine said to Richard, "do I really have to lower myself like this?" She looked at Maya like she was looking at a bug. "Don't be shy, Catherine," Richard said, clearly loving every second. You won that big waltz competition last year. This should be easy. Maya stood quietly, but her mind was far away. She was remembering another life. A life when she was called Maya Martinez, the principal dancer with the American National Ballet Company. She remembered crowds jumping to their feet, clapping until their hands hurt. She remembered reviews in newspapers that compared her to the greatest dancers in history. She remembered the feeling of flying across stages in Paris, London, New York, Tokyo. It had all ended in one night. One terrible night. A special performance for important government people. A car accident on the way home. Her best friend died. Maya spent 3 months in a coma. When she woke up, the doctors had sad faces. Her legs would never be the same. She was lucky to walk at all, they said. Dance professionally again? Impossible. Her career was over. Her dreams were dead. Marcus. Richard called to his son. Get your phone. Record this. I want to remember the day a cleaning lady tried to pretend she was a dancer at my party. Marcus looked sick to his stomach. Dad, this is wrong. She's just doing her job. She accepted the challenge. Richard snapped back. His voice got mean. Now she's going to entertain us. Unless she wanted to tell Sarah about what happened last week at the club. Marcus's face went white as paper. Maya realized Richard controlled his own son with threats and secrets. This man hurt everyone around him. Start the music. Richard ordered the DJ. Then he raised his voice so everyone could hear. Place your bets, everyone. $500 if you bet on my wife. $1,000 if you're brave enough to bet on the cleaning lady. People actually started pulling out money. They were treating this like a game at a casino. Like Maya wasn't even a real person with real feelings. Just entertainment for bored rich people. Catherine moved to the center of the dance floor. She did some stretches, showing off, making sure everyone saw how professional she was. Richard walked close to Maya. So close, she could smell the whiskey on his breath. When you lose, and you will lose, I want you to get on your knees. I want you to say sorry for wasting everyone's time. He smiled like a shark. And then you're fired. You'll never work in this city again. I'll make sure of it. That's when something changed in Maya's eyes. The same fire that had carried her through years of painful ballet training. The same strength that had made her perform even when her feet bled inside her shoes. The same determination that had pushed her through 2 years of physical therapy, learning to walk again after the accident. The music was about to start, and Richard Sterling had no idea what was coming. The DJ's fingers hovered over the music controls. Catherine Sterling stood in the middle of the ballroom floor, rolling her shoulders back like a boxer getting ready for a fight. She wore a smile that said she'd already won. Maya took off her cleaning apron slowly. Underneath, she wore a simple black dress that she used for work. Nothing fancy, nothing special. But the way she folded the apron and set it down carefully made a few people in the crowd stop laughing. There was something about how she moved, something graceful, something they couldn't quite name. This is your last chance to back out, Richard said, finishing his whiskey in one big gulp. Save yourself the embarrassment. Maya didn't answer. She was looking at something far away that nobody else could see. She was looking back through 15 years of pain and loss and secrets. Her real name was Maya Martinez. She'd been born in a tiny apartment in the Bronx to parents who worked 3 jobs between them just to pay rent. When she was 5 years old, her mother took her to see a ballet at a free show in the park. Maya had stood there in the grass, watching the dancers move like birds, like wind, like magic. That night, she told her mother she wanted to dance like that. Her parents couldn't afford real ballet lessons. But Maya's mother cleaned offices at night, and one of those offices belonged to a dance teacher named Mrs. Chun. When Mrs. Chun found out about Maya, she offered to teach her for free. She saw something special in the little girl's eyes. Maya practiced every single day. While other kids played video games, Maya practiced. While other kids watched TV, Maya stretched and trained. Her feet hurt. Her muscles screamed. But she never stopped. By the time she was 12, she'd won every youth competition in New York. By 15, she had a full scholarship to the best ballet school in America. At 20, She became the youngest principal dancer ever hired by the American National Ballet Company. At 21, she danced the lead in Swan Lake at Lincoln Center, and 3 famous ballet companies from Europe tried to hire her. By 25, she was dancing in palaces for kings and queens. Newspapers called her the most gifted dancer of her generation. But success like that comes with pressure. Pressure like a mountain sitting on your chest. The company pushed her to dance more shows, take fewer rest days, ignore small injuries. She was their star, their money maker, their golden ticket. Then came the special performance. A private show for senators and congresspeople and their families. Maya danced that night even though her ankle hurt, even though something felt wrong. She danced beautifully, like always. Everyone clapped. Everyone loved it. After the show, Maya and her best friend Julie got in a car to go home. They were laughing about something funny that happened backstage. The driver was tired. He'd been working long hours too. Nobody saw the truck run the red light until it was too late. Maya woke up 3 months later in a hospital bed. The first thing she asked about was Julie. The nurse's face told her everything before any words came out. Julie was gone, dead on impact, and Maya's legs were destroyed, shattered, broken in so many places the doctors lost count. "You'll walk again," the doctor told her. "But dancing? Professional dancing? I'm sorry, that part of your life is over." Maya spent the next 2 years in physical therapy. Learning to walk was like learning to breathe all over again. Every step felt like knives in her bones. Some days she cried so hard she couldn't see. Some days she wanted to give up, but she thought about Julie, about her parents, about Mrs. Chun who believed in her. And she kept going. She did walk again. She could even do light exercise. But the ballet world moved on without her. They found new stars, younger dancers. Nobody remembered Maya Martinez anymore, and she had no money left. The medical bills took everything. The insurance barely covered half. Her parents used their life savings to help. So Maya changed her name back to her mother's maiden name, Johnson. She moved to a different part of the city. She took jobs that paid cash. Cleaning, serving, whatever kept food on the table. She couldn't bear to be around dance anymore. It hurt too much. Like loving someone who doesn't love you back. For 15 years, she lived this quiet life. She never told anyone who she used to be. What was the point? That person was dead. That life was gone. Until tonight. "Whenever you're ready," Catherine said, stretching her arms over her head. She was showing off, making sure everyone saw how flexible she was, how professional. Richard walked over to the DJ booth. "Start with something easy. A Viennese waltz. 3/4 time. Let's not make this too hard for our contestant." He said the word contestant like it tasted bad in his mouth. Marcus stood near the back wall, his phone in his hand but not recording. He couldn't do it. He couldn't film his father being this cruel. Some of the other guests had their phones out, though. This would be all over social media by morning. Poor cleaning lady humiliated at fancy party. Millions of views. Thousands of laughs. The DJ pressed play. The opening notes of a classical waltz filled the room. It was Strauss, the Blue Danube. Maya knew it instantly. She danced to this music 100 times, 1,000 times. This piece had been the soundtrack to some of the best nights of her life. Catherine Sterling began to dance. She was good, very good. Actually, she knew all the right steps. Her posture was perfect. Her timing was exact. She moved across the floor with confidence, her dress swirling around her like water. The crowd clapped politely. Some people whistled. Richard beamed with pride. "That's my wife," he shouted. 10 years of lessons, people. That's what real training looks like." Catherine finished with a flourish, one arm raised high, her chin up. The crowd applauded loudly. She took a little bow, soaking it all in. Then she looked at Maya with a smile that said, "Beat that." "Your turn," Richard said to Maya. He was grinning, so big his face looked like it might split in half. "Let's see what you've got, cleaning lady." Maya walked to the center of the floor. Her work shoes squeaked a little on the marble. She wasn't wearing dance shoes. She didn't have the right clothes. She didn't have anything except the music and the memories and the fire burning in her chest. She closed her eyes for just a second. In that second, she wasn't in Richard Sterling's ballroom anymore. She was 20 years old again, standing in the wings at Lincoln Center, waiting for her music to start. She could hear her mother's voice saying, "Show them who you are, Media. Show them what you're made of." The music started again, the same Strauss waltz. But something was different now. Maya's whole body seemed to change. Her shoulders dropped. Her spine lengthened. Her feet, even in those cheap work shoes, pointed perfectly. And then she began to move. The first step made several people in the crowd gasp. It wasn't just a step. It was poetry. It was air made visible. It was everything beautiful in the world captured in one single moment of movement. Maya's body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. 15 years melted away like ice in the sun. Her legs, the legs a doctor said would never dance again, carried her across the floor like she was floating. Every turn was perfect. Every extension was flawless. She didn't just dance the waltz. She became the waltz. The crowd went silent. Not the uncomfortable silence from before. This was the silence of people witnessing something they couldn't explain. Something that made their hearts beat faster. Something that made them forget to breathe. Catherine Sterling's mouth fell open. Her hands dropped to her sides. She'd been good. But this was something else entirely. This was what it looked like when someone touched greatness. Richard's smile disappeared like someone had wiped it off his face with a cloth. His whiskey glass hung frozen halfway to his mouth. His eyes went wide. Confused. Scared, even. Marcus stared at Maya like he was seeing a ghost. Because, in a way, he was seeing Maya Martinez, the legendary ballerina that everyone thought had disappeared forever. The dancer's father had just challenged to prove she was nothing. Maya spun across the ballroom floor, her arms flowing like water, her body telling a story that had no words. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. She was home. After 15 years of being lost, she was finally home. The music built toward its crescendo. Maya actually leaped. Her body rose into the air like gravity forgot she existed. For one impossible second, she hung there, suspended between earth and sky. When her feet touched down, the music ended. Maya stood perfectly still, breathing hard, her heart pounding, her whole body shaking. The ballroom was silent as a tomb. 200 people stood frozen, staring at something they couldn't believe they'd just seen. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence stretched on and on like a rubber band pulled tight, ready to snap. Then, from somewhere in the back of the ballroom, someone started clapping, slow at first. One person, then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire room exploded with applause. Not the polite clapping from before. This was real. This was people jumping to their feet, cheering, some of them crying without knowing why. Maya stood in the center of the floor, her chest rising and falling, sweat on her forehead, her cheap work shoes still squeaking slightly on the marble. She looked around at all the faces that had been laughing at her just minutes ago. Now they looked at her like she was magic. Richard Sterling stood frozen with his mouth hanging open. His face had gone from red to white to a strange purple color. The whiskey glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Nobody even looked at it. All eyes were on Maya. "That's impossible," Richard whispered. Then louder, "That's impossible. You're a cleaning lady. You can't dance like that. Nobody can dance like that without years of training and—" 20 years of training, said a voice from near the entrance. Everyone turned. An elderly woman with silver hair was walking into the ballroom, leaning on a cane. She wore an elegant black dress and pearls. Her eyes were sharp and bright. Marcus recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Chun, the ballet teacher? What are you doing here?" Mrs. Chun walked slowly toward Maya, her cane tapping on the marble floor. Each tap sounded loud in the quiet room. "I was invited to this party," she said. "I teach ballet to the daughter of one of your business partners, Mr. Sterling. I arrived late and came in through the side entrance. I saw everything. She reached Maya and took both of her hands. Tears rolled down the old woman's wrinkled cheeks. I thought I'd never see you dance again, Mija. After the accident, after you disappeared, I thought you were lost forever. You know her, Richard said, his voice getting high and squeaky. How do you know her? Mrs. Chun turned to face the crowd. Her voice was strong and clear despite her age. This woman is not just a cleaning lady. This is Maya Martinez. The Maya Martinez, the youngest principal dancer ever hired by the American National Ballet Company. The dancer who performed for the Queen of England. The artist that every ballet magazine called the greatest talent of her generation. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. People pulled out their phones, frantically typing and searching. Within seconds, they were finding old articles, old videos, old photographs of a younger Maya in beautiful costumes, dancing on the world's most famous stages. "Oh my God," someone whispered. "It's really her. I saw her dance Swan Lake 15 years ago. I cried through the whole thing. It was the most beautiful performance I've ever seen. I have her autograph somewhere," another voice said. "From when I was a kid, my parents took me to see her. She was incredible." Richard's face kept changing colors. But she's a cleaning lady. She works for the contract company." She dropped the tray. She survived a car accident that killed her best friend," Mrs. Chin interrupted, her voice sharp as a knife. "An accident that shattered both her legs. Doctor said she'd never walk properly again, much less dance. She spent 2 years learning to use her legs again. 2 years of pain that would have broken most people. And she did it. She walked again. But her career was over. The ballet company moved on. She had no money left after the medical bills. So she did what she had to do to survive." Catherine Sterling, who had been standing off to the side, suddenly sat down in a chair. Her face was pale. "I teach ballet," she said quietly. "I won a community competition, but I could never, ever dance like that. Nobody I've ever met could dance like that." Richard looked around wildly, like he was searching for an escape, but there was nowhere to go. 200 pairs of eyes were staring at him, judging him. His cruel joke had just exploded in his face like a bomb. "You made a promise," Maya said softly. Her voice was tired but steady. "You said if I danced better than your wife, you'd marry your son to me." The room went silent again. Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I was joking. Obviously, I was joking. You can't expect me to." "I don't want to marry your son," Maya said. Cut him off. "I don't want anything from you except what you owe me. Respect, an apology, and my job, since you threatened to fire me and make sure I never work in this city again." Marcus stepped forward. "She's right, Dad. You made a bet in front of 200 witnesses. You lost. You need to apologize." Richard looked at his son like he'd been slapped. "You're taking her side? Against your own father?" "I'm taking the side of what's right," Marcus said. His voice was shaking, but he stood tall. "I'm tired of watching you bully people. I'm tired of the threats and the cruelty. I'm tired of being ashamed to be your son." A murmur ran through the crowd. Several people nodded. Richard Sterling had made a lot of enemies over the years with his mean behavior. Tonight, they were all watching him get what he deserved. An older man in an expensive suit stepped forward. Maya recognized him as James Chun, Mrs. Chen's son, and one of the biggest art gallery owners in New York. "Mr. Sterling," he said, "I came to this party to discuss a partnership with you. A deal worth about $20 million. But after watching how you treat people, how you mock and humiliate someone for your own entertainment, I've changed my mind. I want nothing to do with you or your company." Another voice spoke up, a woman in a red dress. "I'm Jennifer Park from Park Industries. We were going to invest $15 million in your new project. We're pulling out, effective immediately." One by one, people started speaking up. Business partners, investors, important people who had seen Richard's true character tonight and wanted no part of it. The ballroom that had been full of laughter at Maya's expense was now full of people turning their backs on Richard Sterling. Richard's purple face turned gray. "Wait!" Please, let's talk about this. I made a mistake. I had too much to drink. You showed us who you really are, said Mrs. Chun. And we believe you. Richard turned to Maya, his hands shaking. Please, he said, tell them it was all in good fun. Tell them you weren't really hurt by it. Maya looked at him for a long moment. She thought about all the nights she'd worked cleaning jobs, her legs aching from the old injuries. She thought about all the times she'd been invisible to rich people at these events. She thought about Julie, her best friend who died in the accident. She thought about the career she lost and the years of pain and the quiet life she'd built from the ashes. No, she said simply, I won't lie for you. You were cruel because you thought you could be, because you thought I was nobody, because you've been cruel your whole life and nobody ever stopped you. Well, tonight, someone's stopping you. The crowd applauded again, this time for different reasons, this time for justice. Richard Sterling turned and walked toward the exit, his shoulders slumped, his power gone. Several of his former business partners followed him out, shouting about canceled deals and broken partnerships. His wife, Catherine, went with him, but she looked back at Maya once with something like respect in her eyes. Marcus stayed behind. He walked over to Maya and Mrs. Chun. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry for everything my father did, for everything I didn't do to stop him. Maya nodded. You stood up for what was right in the end. That takes courage. What will you do now? Marcus asked, will you dance again? Professionally? Maya smiled, but it was a sad smile. My legs can handle one dance. Maybe two, but not the daily training a professional career requires. That part of my life is truly over. But you could teach, Mrs. Chin said, squeezing Maya's hand. You could choreograph. You could do so many things. You have so much knowledge, so much talent still inside you. Maya looked around the ballroom, at the people who had laughed at her, at the people who now looked at her with admiration, at the broken glass on the floor where this whole thing started. Maybe, she said quietly, maybe it's time to stop hiding. Stop pretending the old me never existed. James Chin stepped forward. Ms. Martinez, I own 3 art galleries in New York and 2 more in Los Angeles. We host cultural events, including dance performances. I would be honored if you would consider working with us. Teaching, choreographing, consulting, whatever you want to do, name your price. Other voices chimed in with offers. A dance school wanted her as their head instructor. A documentary filmmaker wanted to tell her story. A publishing company wanted her to write a book. Within 10 minutes, Maya had more opportunities than she could count. She stood there overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Chin put an arm around her shoulders. You see, Mija, you never stopped being Maya Martinez. You just forgot for a little while. But tonight, you remembered. And now the whole world remembers too. Marcus pulled out his phone. The video is already going viral, he said, showing her the screen. Someone posted it online. It has 2 million views already. People are calling it the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. Maya watched herself on the small screen, dancing across the ballroom floor. She barely recognized herself. She looked free. She looked alive. She looked like the person she'd been before the accident, before the pain, before she learned to hide. Thank you, she said to Mrs. Chun, for believing in me when I was 5 years old, for teaching me for free, for never giving up on me. You never gave up on yourself, Mrs. Chin said. That's what matters. You fell down. You got hurt. You lost everything. But you survived. You kept going. And tonight, when someone tried to make you small, you showed them just how big you really are. The party was breaking up. People came over to shake Maya's hand, to apologize for laughing, to ask for her autograph. She stood there in her cleaning uniform and her cheap shoes, accepting their words with grace. As the crowd thinned out, Marcus approached her one more time. I meant what I said earlier, he told her. I'm tired of being like my father. I want to be better. And I'm starting by cutting ties with his company. I'm going to start my own business. An ethical one that treats people with respect. Maya smiled at him. Good luck. The world needs more people willing to stand up for what's right. As she finally left the ballroom that night, Maya Johnson, who used to be Maya Martinez, walked with her head held high. Her legs still hurt. The old injuries would never fully heal. But something else had healed tonight. Something deeper than bones and muscles. She'd remembered who she was. And she'd shown the world that you can take away someone's career, their money, their fame. But you can't take away their talent. You can't take away their dignity. You can't take away who they really are inside. Richard Sterling's cruel joke had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. He'd wanted to humiliate a cleaning lady. Instead, he'd reminded a legend that she was still legendary. And in doing so, he'd lost everything that mattered to him. Sometimes the universe has a funny way of balancing things out. Sometimes the person you're laughing at turns out to be the very person who teaches you the most important lesson of your life. Never judge someone by their job title or their circumstances, because you never know who they used to be. You never know what they've survived. You never know what they're capable of when you push them far enough. Maya Martinez had fallen from the highest heights to the lowest lows. But tonight, in a ballroom full of cruel people, wearing a cleaning uniform and cheap shoes, she reminded everyone, including herself, that greatness doesn't disappear just because life gets hard. It just waits, quietly, patiently, until the moment is right to shine again.